Hello, this is Pierre Durr. This is a short one, but I don't like to go too long without having an extra witness tape. Everything is going along very well, and there was one point I wanted to make. I had it for like a week or two, but it was about the soul, and this is something that we didn't really expound on. I know we went over it before, but how important it is. And I remember as a Jehovah Witness, I didn't have a soul, or I guess you can say you sell your soul, or your soul is with the governing body or whatever. And I was remembering when I was Jehovah Witness, I remember point blank that I would tell my householders, um, you don't, I mean, there's no soul. Was it something like the soul is you? I mean, it's like you don't have a soul. It's like we just say, I remember saying so many times how the soul is you. It's who you are. But not really understanding the depth of the soul. Okay? And I know in our time of learning, the earlier times when we were learning hundreds of years ago, whatever, like when we started technology and everything, and I read a lot of places where they wanted to see how much the soul weighs, like when you die or whatever, or something like that. Everybody's so much fascinated by the soul. But I remember as a Jehovah Witness, I was taught, and from what I was taught, there is no soul. And I talked to a lot of people who of other religions and how they don't really, um, let me see, enforce the fact that we do have a soul. So I was thinking, as far as a Jehovah Witness, how I would always say you don't have a soul. I mean, like, your soul is you. I mean, and that's really a sad teaching, because without a soul, you can't do things. You can't create your own government in your head. You can't organize things. You have nothing to organize your own being with. And I listen to all the YouTubes like I always do, and I always notice the ex-Jehovah Witnesses in their tapes about, whether they realize it or not, all these things that they've done and thought about um, personally, and very big issues, and all that's done with who we are spiritually. So I was saying how important it is to have a soul. And I know if I told my sister or any of the people in my family or my friends who were Jehovah's Witnesses, if I talk about the soul, there's no way in the world that they're going to comprehend. And they're going to say, no, this is not true. So even if you did have a soul, that would make you a total individual. And I was thinking, like, after I left the Jehovah's Witnesses, when did I actually realize that I had a soul? And because without a soul, you're just like floating around. I mean, it's like there, but you have to find it, and then you have to nourish it, and then you have to take care of it, and then you have to become something. And I was thinking about how long did it actually take me to where I actually believed that I was a person, a spiritual person with the soul. And I guess I could say I could honestly believe that I had a soul is maybe like 20 years ago, when something happened. I'm almost sure, like I said, everything is God. And he gave me this, how can I say, this situation. I mean, sometimes God gives us these situations to where we're all enveloped in this thing that's happening to us. Okay, it was like one of my bosses had this thing that I realized. I worked for Leukemia Foundation, and this is, I think, was this after I realized I had a soul? I'm almost sure, or I'm not sure. It's just before, I think. I realized that I had a soul. I was a spiritual being, in God. I just want to say with God, because I know some people can use their souls and they can just be a spiritual being and that's it. So anyway, I was working at the Leukemia Foundation, and my boss was stating something happened to her. She was driving and she got into this situation at a gasoline station, and you're just like surrounded by this thing that's happening to you, and you can't get out, and it's just there, okay? And I knew what was happening to her because I remember she would tell me, this was the boss, the head boss of this how can I say, this segment of where I was working. Okay, it's kind of complex, but that doesn't have anything to do with it. And I remember her telling us, because I think she was on her way of finding her soul, because I remember one time just hearing her say, I started counting everything, and I remember she says I was like going down the stairs, and I remember I started counting the stairs, things like that. I'm not talking about in a crazy sense. I'm talking about something that you are in control of and something that you're noticing about yourself. And then I went into her office, and I remember, because I was very, very gentle with her, because I don't want to, you don't want to, if you know something, I think I didn't know it, but I was coming to the realization of it. I know that there was something there. And I remember we were in New York, and it was like kind of a high, maybe like 14, it was a little bit more, maybe 30 floors or whatever. And we were looking at the buildings, and I was noticing, as she was noticing, how, like when you're looking far up and there's other buildings that's close to you, and you notice something that is like, not that it's not real, but how life really is, okay? Because you have like the building right in front of you. I don't know if anybody can catch on to this. And then you like start realizing that, hey, why is this way? Why is the light this way? It's sort of like when you're walking down a hallway where you live, and you're trying to figure out this hallway, and the lights go like this, okay, something like that. But anyway, she was in this situation when she was driving, and she stopped at a gasoline station, and she couldn't get out of this situation. But she was in a situation, and she learned something about the situation with these other people that happened, and she just was isolated. And that kind of, and I knew from that instance that she was realizing, that she had a soul. And then I had also a professor. I don't know if I told her, but she was like that too. She was finding herself. It's almost like finding yourself. And she was just skeptical about this thing. And I've never had a professor talk like this. But she said, it was a Spanish class, but she was American. And she goes, when I'm reading, sometimes I can actually see something happening in my head, you know what I mean? And I wanted to tell her too, but you have to be very gentle, because then I knew what something with that was. And so the only point I'm trying to make is the Jehovah's Witnesses will not have these experiences because the governing body actually has control of their soul. And it takes such a long time to actually get to know yourself and know that you're a spiritual being with God. So that led me to thinking how important it was and how sad it was that the Jehovah's Witnesses don't grow to learn their soul. If you're growing in a religion, we take ourselves for granted out here. As a Christian, as a Catholic, they all have certain categories. How can I say categories, or how can I say not categories, but certain levels of knowing themselves as a soul, as a spiritual being. But as a Jehovah's Witness, you don't have that privilege. But as a Christian, and when I say Christian, like I said, you know what I mean by Christian. I mean, it's not of any religion, but you have a freedom as a Christian or a Christian society, or that came from a Christian society, to get to know yourself, because there's no limits. Like, nobody tells you you have to do this, you have to do that. So when somebody's not telling you you have to do this and you have to do this way and you have to do this, the more freedom you have, the more you learn about the spiritual being that you are. So we, being out in the world, so to speak, that Jehovah's Witnesses don't realize that here we have the ability to learn about more about ourselves and who we are. And like I said, when I was becoming to learn about my soul, I said, like my boss, one of my bosses, mine was a really big situation to where I actually, to where God showed me that, hey, yes, this is a soul that you have. And just everybody has their own experiences. Mine was very, very, very in depth, to where when I got out of that situation, I knew that, I had a soul. And I remember another friend, and I said it in one of my videos. I remember one of my friends in Florida, I said it in one of my videos, but I'm going to say it again, is now I realize what happened to this person is like, and we both believed in God, but we were very poor, and we were in Florida. And people who do all of my videos, they understand what happened. They'll understand the scene. And we were so poor, and we were looking for a job, pretty practically on the street. And it was my friend, but we had each other. You know what I mean? Just a friend. And he would always wear barefoot. And one time, we would like do these tricks, like like on a bench. On the back of the bench, we would try and like walk straight on the back of the wooden bench and things like that. And one time we were over by a creek and we were talking, and he would always wear barefoot. It was so funny. Like, what, Huckleberry Finn or whatever, it was Tom Sawyer. And he was white. And so I'm telling you, it doesn't make a difference, but I'm just giving you more context of what this was. And, so we were at the creek and we were talking, and one time he goes, I used to be afraid of everything. And he goes, one time I was in my room and I just afraid of everything. And something threw me across the room. And he goes, after that, I was never afraid of anything else. After that experience, he said nothing happened to me or anything. It was just like I was thrown across the room and I was all right. And he goes, after that, so I'm not going to explain that situation, but I'm saying what I see is, which I couldn't really put in words. And then I could see that he learned that he had a soul, that he was a spiritual being, that he was like everybody else, that he had more to himself than what meets the eye. You know what I mean? And I just want to say that. And I really developed the fact that I was a soul. I know I don't say anything about anybody else's religion, but when I became Catholic, and a lot of people know my stories, I mean, you could be whatever religion. I don't say anything about any religions, you know, as far as, like I agree or I don't agree, because it's all different kind of religions. Anyway, religion is something earthly. And but so I just want to say, when I became Catholic, and it was a lot of people. I was in the Basilica in Denver, and it was so much training and about who I was. And I'm not saying that they train. It was a spiritual training because they did very minimal, and all my training was from my soul, from my spirit, and who I was was taught to me. And that's the thing about it is that you know that you're being trained right if they hardly touch you. You know what I mean? The only thing they do is they move you to learn more about yourself and your relationship with God. And that's the sad part that Jehovah's Witnesses don't have. And this is the one that I want to talk about. It's sad that, and that would take, and another thing I'm going to get into is that how long it would take them to just come out of that, and how long it's taken us to develop who we are. And just think about how lost they would are and how long it would take. It just doesn't happen overnight. And for them to think that everything is automatic, and it's like a scam, because like I even told you about this electricity scam that these people said it was, I'm not going to say the company, but just because they said they were going to give me $200, I was like, oh shit. I mean, I'm sorry for cussing. And I was like, I wanted this $200. I wanted it so bad that I switched to this company. And instead of them giving me $200, it was like they took $200. And if they were to give me $200, it would be some of the money that they cheated me from. But I got out of that company. So, like the Jehovah's Witnesses, they teach about this new system. It's a scam because there's no way in the world. It's like all these things that in the Bible that all these people who follow God, all these things they had to do. You know what I mean? And it was a lot of things. He never said you're gonna have a new system and everything's gonna be all right. You don't have to work. I mean, we don't. They don't talk about working. They don't talk about cleaning up. They don't have to do anything. The only thing they have to do in this cartoon where it was like you just pass the gate in your new system, is just like, you know, it has nothing to do. It's a scam. That's all I have to say. So now you can add that to it. So anyway, this is Pierre Durr, and I wanted to explain to you about because how important it was. And I know we just touched on it, but how important it is that, and that we take for granted. Most people take, and you can take it for granted. It's no big deal, because I'm almost sure God doesn't want you to like worry and all that. We have so many worries and anything, but He wants you to know that, hey, you know, you have it. It's free. You know what I mean? And you can learn at your own pace. That's another thing too. As Jehovah's Witnesses, they all learn at this thing, whatever they're learning or whatever they're doing. But as individuals, we learn at our own pace. And one beautiful thing is that they have the spiritual paradise, and we have the strength in ourselves when we, as far as our souls are together, you know, in Christ. So thank you very much. I'll see you later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.